Hello, readers. Welcome to 20 Questions with Your Favorite Author, where we ask authors important questions like, why would you agree to be on this podcast? I'm Kelly Lynn Colby, Editorial Director at Cursed Dragon Ship Publishing. Our guest this week is Tamsin Silver, historical fantasy writer and theater geek. Tamsin Silver is a fantasy author based out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, with a background in theater and education. She writes both historical fantasy about Billy the Kid and urban fantasy. You can learn more about her by visiting tamsinsilver.com. If she's not your favorite now, she will be after. Yay! Welcome, Tamsin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's always funny when we start the intro, like we haven't talked for like half an hour before this. I think it's hilarious. Yeah. I'm always jealous. Did you ever listen to Chris Hardwick's podcast?
I have not.
It's at the beginning. He just starts when he sits down to talk with people. They just start recording. Like there's no intro, there's no nothing. He just hits record, and every single time the guest is like, "Wait, are we recording?" He's like, "Oh yeah, we recorded since you walked in."
They're like, "Oh no!" Then they're thinking back. What did I say?
Right?
Is there
They're
anything
like,
I said that I wish I hadn't said? Yeah.
Clever though, because by that point, I mean, they're already comfortable, and you don't really go back to being uptight now, right? And you just keep going. It's very clever. But we're professional around here, so we have a theme. See? So theater, I love theater. I'm actually quite surprised that there are not more authors that are involved in theater. Like I love that medium. And we love the drama, right? How can we not like theater? Or be involved in? I won't say not like. There's plenty that like it. So I was wondering, what is it about that form of storytelling that attracts you?
Well, I think it's a natural progression. I mean, if you think about it, so I started in performing, actually musicals, and I was a performer for years, and then I transitioned into being a director, and then I moved to New York City, and I directed, and then I transitioned into owning a theater company where I was the artistic director, and I was there, and then I did technical direction and stage managing off Broadway, and it was to the point where the best way I can always explain is this. When you're an artistic director, you are looking at the whole picture of your story, right? And you're looking at all the characters in it. You're looking at the through line, the inner dialogue, the situation, the scene, how it's set, what it looks like, the costume. Like
the costumes too, right? Yeah, all of it.
Yeah, you have to think about all of it. As the actor, you're just looking at your character. As a director, you're looking at all the characters in that main story plot line. As the artistic director, you're looking at the entire production. And so if the next thing you do is then write, I feel like that's just sort of now I'm not only taking and creating that character. I'm not just creating the plot. I'm not creating the world. I'm also breathing all the life into it as giving it the words. So I feel like that the progression was just a natural moving. Plus, I started writing stories when I was like 11 or 12 in my parents' basement on an electric typewriter because I'm old. And so it I don't know if there ever was a time I wasn't telling stories. I mean, when I was really little, I played Barbies and we had epic storylines with them to the point where I'd be like, all right, everybody remember where we were when we can pick up here when we come back. So
you were always a director.
I was always a director. I was always involved in creating stories. That's never changed. It's just been the medium in which I chose to do them with that changed. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. So you said you did a lot of musicals performing, but when you were directing and stuff, you did other stuff. Did you do plays as well?
I directed plays, mostly straight plays, a lot of Shakespeare. I also directed, I did do a cabaret or two where I did all the choreography for them as well. We had someone that was going to do that and then they bailed and I was like, screw it, I'll just do it.
I've seen enough of these. We'll make it happen.
I got paid to choreograph Godspell at one point when I lived in the Carolinas. So like, it's not like it was new to me to do. And I've done enough shows but yeah, I ended up started stage managing because let me tell you, not many people don't want to be a stage manager. It's a hard job.
It's my favorite job. I love
it's the hardest. And I did it. I mean, I'm good at it. I'm fantastic. Mm-hmm. However, it is not something I wanted to go in. Someone's like, you could get your card and you could go pro and do it. And I was like, oh, hell no. I do not. Stage management does not bring out the best of me. It brings out the most anal challenge. Like I will run that show and it will be clean.
Mhm.
But if people act ridiculous, I have no qualms in.
It's
Uh,
actors. Come on. Who's going
oh
to act
yeah,
ridiculous? I
oh yeah.
mean,
No,
that's
I had a and what happens? I will fuck with people, and I was doing I was stage managing. It was my class, my stage management class. I couldn't actually take the class because it hit along with my education classes and it didn't fit, but I needed it for graduation. And so they let me take stage management one and stage two. And instead of taking the class, I actually stage managed a show for the director of that class. And we were doing a period piece, and then the young girl playing the ingenue lead. All these costumes were like antique and worth a lot of money, and
uh-huh.
we had them on loan, and you have to be very careful. And she kept leaving it on the floor in the dressing room and showing up with almost no time for stage. And I was just like, I'm gonna hurt her. And so I kept giving notes. We found clothes on the floor again, please. If I finally I said, and I called her out, and I was like, if I find your clothing on the floor again, I said, you may be going on stage naked. Just
Yeah, that's what I say. You're going out in your underwear. Yeah,
you're
yeah,
gonna go
yeah.
out. And so and I said, and I kept saying to her, I need you to be here on time. You need to be here, an hour before we go on stage. And she didn't. And she kept getting, so she came in late and she couldn't find her costume because she'd left it in the middle of the dressing room floor. And I had put it in a room and locked it away. No one had keys but me. And the assistant stage managers who were working with me, they were prop stage men, like we all had an understanding. If they asked them where it was, they would say, ask Tamsin. And if she came out, oh, go ask Shayna and Liz. And so we played that game with her until the point where she was going to lose it all. And I finally said, I have an idea. Come with me. And I opened it up. I said, this be it? And she just was livid. And I looked at her and went, you're lucky you're getting it at all. I'm telling you, if I find it on the floor again, you will not have it. Do we understand each other? So when I say that stage man does not bring out the best in me,
I don't know. I mean, that's pretty cool if you ask me. I don't have any problem with that.
she never left that thing on the floor again. And she wasn't late ever again either.
You could have like helped her entire
Yeah.
career.
I possibly, who knows whatever happened to her. I couldn't even tell you her name. But yeah, so and
She's
but
forgetting
yeah,
that the whole theater, it's a small world.
yes,
It's a
it is.
small world.
It is, especially when you do, and that of course was in college, but when I was in New York, people would do shows and everybody knew each other in the off Broadway world and off Broadway. Like, so everybody kind of knew who each other were in their segment. So
Yep.
yeah, I had someone who had done a show with me who had been not great to work with. And someone saw that they'd worked for my company and knew me personally. And I got a phone call that said, hey, you worked with so and so. They auditioned for me. Anything about them? I said, yeah. And I gave I said, so if you take them on, understand this. I said, they did a great job, but this is the problems. And they didn't hire them because, that. And so it's always important to keep in mind, no matter where you are, someone knows someone. And so, and that has probably behooved me as well for my writing careers.
Yes.
With concern.
Yes. That's exactly where my brain was going. I'm like, the writing career also, you would think, like you go and, to any bookstore and you see a bazillion authors and stuff, but the people actually making it happen, right? The publishers and the agents and we all talk. We
they all
talk. And there will be somebody in the group conversation that knows you. And they will be honest because we can't help ourselves and there's usually alcohol involved. So
it's true.
It's true. It really is. So I want to say that you apparently put these skills to work with the web series Sky of the Damned.
Yeah. So
what was that experience like?
So all right, we're being on, it's an honest podcast, right?
Yeah.
So what happens if you grew up in the Midwest is that you're used to just saying, sure, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. It's a problem. And so Jet Barrelson, who's a good friend of mine, he runs vampirefreaks.com. And at the time they had a store and an online store and a community. We all were in New York City together. And he said, "Hey, I'd like to do a web series." I'm like, "Sure, that'd be cool." He wanted me to write it. And I said, "Yeah, I can do that." And I said, "I'm just writing this." I said, "I'm not,
Big.
this is not, yeah, no, go look at the credits and you'll figure out that that didn't happen that way." But I said, the only way I'm doing it is if you're doing quality, you're not hiring just, you need to make sure you're doing a decent job of it. You hire someone who knows how to sound edit, someone who knows how to edit in general. Um, and so we ended up doing, I ended up directing 5 of the 6 episodes that aired. I ended up producing most of them. I was on set for everything. I cast it. I scheduled all the fight rehearsals. I hired everyone. I did all of the food stuff on one of them because my person who was supposed to do all the food bailed. And so for 2 of the shoots, I just basically said, screw it, I'll do it myself. And I did all the catering in my kitchen in New York. And so, like, it was so, I mean, when I look back on it, I'm really glad we did it. It still holds up. If you watch it, it still holds up. We filmed it in 2013 and it still looks good.
Yeah.
The sound is seamless. The music, we had an amazing composer. My DP was exceedingly talented, sound like he knew all these great people. So Niall just knew how to do this. He's still doing it. He lives in California now. Very, very talented. But it's the film business and it's very different. And so it was a stress level that I did not appreciate. But the cast, I love those kids. Like, I say kids, they're not that much younger than me, but they are. I adore them. Like,
Mhm.
there isn't anything, like, if one of them reached out and said, "Hey, I need something," I'd be like, "What do you need?" Just great people to work with. They just were wonderful.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I enjoy watching them on Facebook. A lot of them have kids now and married, and or they're doing work in LA. And one of my favorites in the cast, his name was Andrew, and he's now working in LA and getting lots of work doing stuff. And so it's just really wonderful
Yeah.
to watch these people blossom. Kara has changed her life completely. She's doing, like, physical, like, she basically trains people, physical training, and helps people with their weight. And, like, they've all just blossomed into these beautiful adults.
That's so cool.
And so that's kind of the part of it that I look back on and that I love, and the fact that I survived it. And but I'm going to tell you right now. Let me see, what year did Sky the book come out? Hold on here. Usually I'm good about it. Okay. So if you look inside here, copyright 2019. We filmed this series in 2013. It took until 2019 for me to recover enough to like the story enough to put it in book form. So I started working in 2018. So that means it took 5 years, Kelly, 5 years for me to heal inside from
So
the
you can kill
trauma
those
of
characters
filming
again.
all that, to be like, you know what? I could revisit that story. So, yeah. But what's funny is that it's really great, and I'm gonna be working on a third one shortly. It's called that the third one's called Faith of the Damned. And so the second one is Hope, and then it'll be Faith, and that'll be the third one in that first trilogy, and then we'll do another trilogy when I get around. But yeah, so it is that is the plan, at least at this point in time. So but I'm telling you, the whole cast, uh my friend Phil, who's on the back of this here, they're just some of the nicest people. I just really got blessed with the people we worked with on that cast. They were wonderful, and my crew is so wicked talented. I just, you look back now, and now that I've gotten past all the stress and all the money issues and all the crowdfunding, is a pain in the ass, man. It's just not a
Yeah.
good time. And
Yeah.
I wrote a 7th episode we never got to film because I was like, I'm not trying to scrape that money one more time. I'm not doing it.
No, that's
So
the hardest part, man. And you're
yeah,
actually filming it, you've got to pay the rates, you know what I mean? You've got
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just yeah, no, I'm with you. That's the only reason we don't even tackle that. I'm like, I have a hard enough time, producing the books we're publishing. I cannot produce
yeah.
anything on that scale. It's not happening.
Well,
I'm
what
with
was
you.
funny was that one of the cool things about filming, though, was that we had to make decisions differently. So, for instance, when we said, okay, we know because vampirefreaks.com wants to do this, we
Mhm.
definitely want it to have vampires in it. Duh. And so we're like, well, what else are we going to use? And we're like, well, no one's got it in their budget to do werewolves or shape shifting. Um, that's not going to happen. And I was like, that's not going to work. So I was like, so we had to come up with who the other creatures were in the story that created the tension. And I ended up wanting, I chose the Fae, but it's not your typical Fae. Mine are fallen angels. So the idea of the story is
Ah.
when Lucifer battled God for heaven and lost, the
Mhm.
angels that took Lucifer's side went to hell. The angels that took God's side stayed in heaven. But there's always people that won't take a side. They're like, oh
True.
no, I'm in my bubble. I'm not. So the idea is that the angels that never took a side were banished to earth, and they are the Fae, and they're fallen angel errant. And so that's the idea of
Oh,
that story, is that it's the vampires and the Fae. And
I
so
like
yeah,
that. That's clever orientation or original. How come I not can't say a word? Comes from them. I can't think of the word. Isn't that funny? Orientation. I only have orientation. I can't do it. That's what happens when you edit all day long and then you
yes,
try to actually use words in the evening again. Right? You
yeah,
can't come up with them. Um
same
the
reason
it'll
why
come
we
up
were
like
able to,
7 questions later.
of course, and we
Origin.
were able to,
Ha!
there you
Origin
go.
story. That's a great origin story for the Fae. I love it. You're like, what are you talking about? We went off the record here. What are we talking about right now? Sorry, origin story. I knew it was something with an OR. It's the best I got. Okay. Um, Quit laughing at me, chat. Okay. The I guess it's their prerogative. Well, I was going to ask what was unique about writing the novel, but I guess you answered that, so that's pretty cool. I like it. So the novel keeps going, then, obviously, right? Because it's
So yeah,
not, yeah.
they're novellas. So the first novella is all the episodes that we filmed
Mhm.
plus the one we didn't get a chance to, but it's all written in third person, so you get multiple points of view.
Nice.
You get to learn more about other characters in this
Mhm.
versus, of course, the web series, because the episodes are like 10 minutes a piece.
Mhm.
But and then I continued it with Hope of the Damned, because eventually I was like, well, I could continue this story. I could move forward with this and have some fun. And now I'm not limited by what I can film. I can actually just write this as I would. And
Mhm.
so the second book opens, and you've got death toll, and you've got a huge fight scene, and it was great. I could write what I wanted, and it was a lot of fun to do. And so and the end of that book, it was a really hard thing to write. And then I have to get into eventually doing book three. She is probably my most damaged character that I've ever written. So she's very emotionally, she has things she wants to get done, and she doesn't have as big of a moral compass as some of my other characters do. So yeah,
Nice.
she is, yeah. The scene I knew I needed, I couldn't write it. I wrote the end of the book, and it's one of these last big scenes. And I literally couldn't get to it until I was in the right headspace. There is a scene in, did you ever watch the TV show Angel?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Do you remember the episodes where Faith tortures Wesley?
Yes.
That
Oh my
is,
gosh.
that's what this scene is indicative of and kind of
Mhm.
in homage to. Yeah. Yeah.
That's that's funny you mentioned that because when you were like for your third book, it's going to be Faith, and that's
Yeah.
what Zafo said in the comments. He was like, "Faith season 3, yeah, that makes sense. It totally works."
Yeah.
Because that's where
Um,
Faith came in Buffy season 3.
yep. I know Eliza. So yeah. Wonderful
Oh,
girl. Love her. She's really sweet.
that's
Smart,
awesome.
really smart chick.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I know she said she liked to go to clubs and play chess. I remember that interview. I was like, well, okay then. I guess that's what clubs are for. Um, let's see. So you did that one. Have you sorry, we got totally off topic and I don't care because
It's
it was so
okay.
much fun. Not off topic, off my questions. There is no off topic. We're just having topics. Um, oh, before I move on to the next one, Friday Blue did want to know which side is your favorite. So like, do you have a lot of fun with the fallen angels? Do you like the Fae better? Do you like are the actual
Oh.
angels? I only watched the first episode, so I didn't see if they're actual angels also.
No, there's just fallen angels.
Okay.
I enjoy writing the Fae,
Hmm.
because the idea is the whole reason the vampires even exist is because the Fae were a bunch of petulant children who were destroying everything, and God made the vampires to keep them in line. And so I love writing the twist of the Fae. I love writing how they can be and how they can twist things. And I've really enjoyed that because I've never written Fae before. I've written vampires before. So I really liked writing the Fae sections because it's just was a different take for me to play with. I really loved it. That's why I will eventually continue. At the end of book 2, she has gotten herself into one of the Fae households, and so this is where she's going to finally figure out and learn who is behind her mother's death and why. So it's yeah. So we will get to that point, and we'll end that trilogy. And then if we find it selling well and people would like me to continue, I'll do one more trilogy idea of novellas, and then put out 2 books.
Nice, 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 nice. I love it. I love when like readers really connect. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna write some more. Let's keep going, man, because I'm never done with the characters, right? So that's kind of fun. I really want to talk about your Billy the Kid series because it is so fascinating to me. I think when we were at JordanCon, that's what I asked the most questions about. It's just gorgeous. I love it. Yeah, the cover's beautiful too. But just the story is so cool. But so you've got Billy the Kid in 1949.
Yes.
Of all the historical figures out there, why did you settle on expanding the legend of Billy the Kid?
So what happened was that they were doing one of my friends was actually putting together a weird Western anthology. And this was back when anthologies were starting to really take off. And being as that at the time I was only self-published, and it was a good way to get your name out there. And so I was trying very hard, even though I do not write short stories well, and it's not my bag. I'm currently trying to write one to submit by end of the summer, and I'm having a horrible time. I wrote like 3 pages over the weekend, and I'm pretty sure they're utter shite. So, moving on.
You got to swim through it, man. You got to swim through it to find the story.
It's like, well, we'll find it. It's there. Yeah. So I decided I was like, well, I know I don't know. I lived in New York City at the time. And I was like, well, what do I know about the West? I like working history into my stuff. What do I know? Who do I know about the West? And I just typed in Western characters, and I was like, oh yeah, Billy the Kid. I know Billy the Kid. I didn't know shit about Billy the Kid. Let's be honest. And so I was name. I'm like, I know the name. So while I started digging in, and I went to, Wikipedia like everyone does, and I saw this thing about John Tunstall, and I clicked on that, and I ended up down this rabbit hole of understanding about this Englishman who came over to settle, and how Dolan and Murphy, and how basically Tunstall got in their way financially, and they had him killed. Dolan has him killed, and Billy's there when that happens, and due to how circumstances and how it occurred, Billy definitely felt like it was his fault. So did Brewer and all of them. And so they ended up and all of a sudden you figure out that Billy was deputized, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what? So as this war starts, you've got the sheriff, the dirty sheriff, and his buddies, right? All his war buddies, and they're part of the Santa Fe Ring. And then you find that you've got Billy and his ilk that also got deputized to go after the killers of Tunstall, except for the people who killed Tunstall are friends and part of this other group. So it's this whole, and I was like, and it's just this first real monopoly of understanding land and money in the West. And so,
and that's all the true story part.
Yeah. And that's the true stuff. And I was like, this is, why didn't I ever learn about this? And so I just got into it, and I was like, okay, what can I do? And, so because Billy is Irish and Dolan's and McMurphy's, like there's a bunch of Irishmen over there because they were in the war and they ended up out there. And so I started looking at Irish folklore, and I found a character that I thought was fascinating because it said that she was the creator of monsters and heroes. And I was like, well, why would you do both? And so I thought that lent itself to a story. And so I wrote a short story where we flash back a little bit about, he's basically writing in his diary. It's 1949. He's still alive because of this curse. But he's remembering back and he's writing things down and he's getting ready to visit his grave and his friends. And so I submitted it and they loved it. They loved everything about it. However, they felt it was a novel. And I had already made the decision that I was going to do that. And they said, well, then we're not going to take the short story because we want you to be able to have rights to do that. And so I went back to Lincoln, in New Mexico for about 2.5 weeks with a friend of mine. And by the time I got on a plane to come home, I knew I wasn't coming home, that I was leaving home. And so it was time for me to figure out how to get a job and move out to New Mexico, because I loved it here. The land just speaks to you here, and it's just beautiful. And it really shouldn't surprise anyone. You spend 16 years living in Manhattan where you can't go anywhere unless there's a train. You don't have a car. You can't see the sky.
There's no sky.
Unless you literally are like looking, and so I was just like, no. So it makes sense to me.
Mhm.
So that's what you would flip and do. But I love it here, and there's a lot of creativity here. There's a lot of creative energy here, much like New York. So it's not as different as you might think in the way it feels sometimes. But yeah, so that's how that happened. It was a natural progression from Wikipedia to now 3 books. It
And you're
is.
not even close to done yet.
No, I'm going
Uh-huh.
to be doing research. So the series, if you've not read it, it takes place in 2 time periods. It takes place in 1878 through 1881 when Billy is shot by Garrett. Notice I didn't say killed by Garrett because he's still around in 1949. So
49.
because if someone said to me, they went, well, if he's in 1940, what are you going to do with the scene with Garrett? I said, and you have to wait for book 3. Um, because
Don't
I
worry, I
know
have it
what I'm
covered.
doing. I know what I'm doing, but you're gonna have to wait. I'm not gonna tell you. But it's in 2 time periods, and it deals with 2 big historical things that happened that dealt with the Santa Fe ring. And so because of that, at the and the first timeline, the end of it is 81, and he's headed off for training. He's going off to do stuff with the regulators in England. It's the 1880s. And John says to me, actually, it's in my interview when Billy was released. He said, anything, but think about doing anything with Ripper, and I was like, yeah. Um. So I have sent a proposal to Falstaff to continue the series. If it goes as I would like, the next trilogy falls in the middle between those 2 time periods, or part of it. My hope is that the titles will be The Servant Girl Annihilator, The Whitechapel Murderer, and The Beast of Chicago.
Look at that. I mean, you've got it set. That's awesome. Well, you
Yeah,
mentioned John and Falstaff, and it's John Hardness, right?
yeah, John Hartness.
And then, so what is it like working with a small press? What is that? A lot of people, they either think big publisher or indie, they forget about small press, which is very frustrating since I run one. So I'm thinking, what's the benefit to working with a small press?
Well, what's interesting is that John started out as a small press. I don't consider him a small press anymore. Go look at his list of numbers, how many books they put out, that the kind of writers they have, New York Times bestsellers who are on his list of
Hmm.
books that he carries. And I think of them more of a medium-sized press, even though that's not like a real thing technically. Um, what I like about working with John, and he actually wants his authors to succeed. Like that is his goal. He wants to make money. He wants to make money by authors that he loves succeeding and doing what
Making
they love.
money. Right.
Right.
Yeah. We're
He,
making money together. Uh-huh.
yes.
Mhm.
He also is easy to talk to in that regard. Like if I like, for instance, I wanted to chat with him about some stuff. And I know sometimes it's just easier to do that in person. So Jordan Con, I walked by, I'm like, hey, I need 15 minutes of your time during the con. Got to talk about some business stuff. And then we had a lull, and he came over and sat down, and we started shooting the shit, and we kind of covered what I wanted to cover. He was like, was that it? That's all you needed? I'm like, yeah, you don't have to meet anymore. We're good. So it is. that's one of the nice things about it. It used to be that if you had a big press, they would do all this publicity for you, and they would sink money into getting your books out there and interview. Like they would really put money behind you. They really don't anymore. And so the difference between small press and large press, as far as the author themselves, and they don't even get paid that much up front anymore either. Not unless you're Stephen King or Scalzi or someone.
And that's where they put the advertising money too. The people who don't
And
need
that
it.
is right. And now
ridiculous.
what they're doing is, yeah, they put their money in their advertising now on big name authors who've already got a following, or famous people who are doing their bio books, right?
Or one new person chosen at random, it seems.
Yes,
That's it.
like right. So when I had actually had the books professionally. The first two books were already written when I sold them to Falstaff, and I worked on the third one. And then the pandemic hit, and
Yeah.
and then we all had delayed. But it's interesting to me because I was I was pitching that series out. It sells. I work at Barnes and Noble. Okay, I work there one day a week for fun and discount, and so I oh come on, our discount's about to jump to 50% on books. Come on, it's nuts. And
Really?
so yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
I need to go work at Barnes and Noble. I
I'm
can buy
like,
my own books there for cheaper.
I had to do that one time.
Right?
I We weren't going to get them in fast enough with John ordering them, and so
They'll come in
I
a lot
had to go
faster if
in
you
and
order
buy
as a
my
customer.
books. I had to go and buy my books at the store I work at,
Yeah.
and then I also ordered them on Amazon and paid full price. And I was able to I got them in like 5 days. They had told John if he ordered them, it would have been 7 to 8 weeks.
Yeah. It was
I
crazy
was
there for a
like,
little while.
this
Yeah.
is bullshit.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm like,
I'm like,
what?
are you
I
serious?
actually sent him a picture. I'm like, look what fucking came today. Like, I'm like, dude, I paid for these 3 days ago and they're here. Like it. So,
It's ridiculous what they do to us. What they do the publishers, it's ludicrous.
it's ludicrous. And
It's
so,
ludicrous.
but I did a signing there in May, and usually when people are signing there, they sell maybe one or two books, maybe three or like. But I sold 12 in a matter of just I sold 12 books in a matter of what, 4 hours. And then I watched other people. Then I went and checked sales. Someone the next couple days, my books also went off the shelf. So, so the book sells exceedingly well,
Mm-hmm.
which means if a big publisher had grabbed it and put it into Barnes and Noble and bookstores and put just a little bit behind it, they probably would have made very good money on it. But instead, John gets to make money off it, and that's fine with me because, he'll never stop. As Faith Hunter said to me, John will never stop, trying to sell your book. He will always have your back. And because I said, well, Falstaff's saying they'd like to take the series, and I'm having a horrible time getting it to anybody. They're like, oh, we love this story, but we really don't have room for that right now. Oh, we really love it. Oh, the writing's great. Oh, this, like, they didn't have anything negative to say about it. None of the publishers or anything, none of the publishers that came back to me, none of them. Tor, none of them. They all were like, this is great, but. And I was like, what's going on? And Faith was like, look, they're not taking a lot of new people right now at that time. And so, so I went with Falstaff, and I have not regretted that, because look at that artwork. Like, they do great work. Melissa MacArthur and her artwork is just ridiculous. The stuff she would do. So yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty stunning. And I mean, that's half the battle. You've got to have those good covers.
Oh yeah. It makes a huge difference. I actually found out from my manager that when the big manager, like our big district manager and person who helps with our sales and like configures all our books, and came in, and they were talking to my store manager about, we're doing what she said, look, we're doing more signings, we're getting more, look at our section of our local author stuff. And I had just done mine, so all three books of mine were sitting there displayed together in order. And they were like, and this one actually is one of our employees. And my understanding, I can't remember the exact wording, but the understanding was, she said, She goes, you can tell this one's different from everyone else's here. She said, you can look at these other covers. You can tell this one's at a different level
Mhm.
than the rest of the writers here, just
Yeah,
by the covers. She goes, you can
just by the
tell.
cover.
She
Uh-huh.
goes, you can tell that the level of work is higher. And I was just like,
You're like, that's because it is.
so yeah, I hadn't got a chance to tell John that, but I'm sure I need to message him and Melissa and let them know that.
Oh
But
yeah.
I thought it was really cool that they literally looked at ours and were like, that's different caliber just by how you look at it.
Hmm. It makes a
So yeah.
difference because it's those
Mhm.
details you're paying. Because sometimes you look at the cover and you're like, what's it going to look on the inside? I know they say don't judge, but I'm sorry, I'm in the industry. Guess what? We all judge,
We all
okay?
judge.
It's
We do judge.
100%. Yeah.
There's books I see at Barnes and Noble. I walk by, I'm like, ooh, I might want to read that. Haven't gotten around to it yet, but we're about to get a better discount. So
Yeah, I've looked around and I've seen a book and then opened it up and it disappointed me. But I've never
yeah,
had one with a bad cover that was good on the inside. So,
yeah,
you know, you really you got to start with that good cover, man.
yeah,
So I'm with you. Which is the funny thing with that Jordan Con, because we go to a lot of local conventions and a lot of times you go around and look and you can see the difference, right, between our covers and others, just like your
yeah.
experience, right? And so, but at Jordan Con, they were not like you could see that the quality of what was going on at Jordan Con was incredible. And we love to do conventions. Like I said, you wrote a blog. Well, I said before the interview started, wrote a blog about conventions and why they're important, and you know what a good marketing tool it is and that kind of thing. So I'm wondering
Mhm.
what is the biggest benefit you've gotten from going to a convention?
I mean, other than sales,
Well,
um,
yeah.
other than book sales,
Hmm.
getting out there and meeting other authors,
Hmm.
having that support system really is kind of been key for my entire writing career. I don't
For
think,
sure.
and
Yeah.
what's funny is someone asked me on another interview, how did you end up getting into conventions? I'm like John Hartness. Um, he was just newly published. And he came out to visit me. He was in New York for a lighting gig, and
Hmm.
he had been like, you should do some of these. So I came out, and I think the first con I did was Heroes Con, and then in North Carolina, and then I kind of went from there, and you start to meet people in the business, and it matters. It helps you. I
Yes.
think I became a better writer because I worked with people like Faith Hunter. She had me do a short story for her anthology series for her Rogue Mage, and working with her on writing was definitely something that I think improved my work. Um, and you start working with these people and talking with them about ideas, and you have people to bounce ideas off of. You have also people to talk to when you're like, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm sucking and everything I do, let's burn it all to the ground. The world's on fire. And you have people that can be like, all right, hold on, back up.
Hold on.
Um, but yeah,
Let's go
so right,
outside.
let's go outside, let's breathe. It's all gonna be okay. Let's go sit in the car. You'll be fine.
That's right.
So yeah, so it, I think that that's the biggest thing, other than, of course, meeting people and getting your book out there. Because what the idea is, what I want to get my book in the hands of people. I want people to read it because I love this story so much. I'm so passionate about it. Um, Studying all the history. I mean, I stood over his mama's grave and made her a promise I'd write him correctly. Um,
Oh.
I went, and so the third book is called The Murder of Cricket Kugler,
Mhm.
and so that deals with the unsolved murder of Cricket Kugler from 1949. And that is a real case that never was solved here in New Mexico. And um, I really worked at getting the history right, and the family called me. Well,
Wow.
messaged me on Facebook. Same idea. No one has her phone
Still,
number.
yeah, that's modern day calling. Yeah, yeah.
Modern day calling. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, and it was amazing. I got this message from someone, and I was like, what's this? And they're like, hey, are you the one who wrote this? Because if so, I'm her niece. And I'm like, uh so you don't know where this is going to go, right?
Right, you're like, are you
and
mad at me or happy? What do I do now?
right, and but we had the best texting conversation on Facebook Messenger, and just a lovely woman. Her mother was the older sister of Cricket, and she was just phenomenal to talk to, and she really it was really amazing. She thanked me for getting it right and thanked me for not writing cricket as a horror like a lot of the men tried to portray her as, so that no one would listen to what. Yeah, you already know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they did the same thing about Susan McSween. They tried saying that she was the same thing in Billy's day. So there were so many similarities in their stories. In situation that weaving them together just made the most sense.
Just made sense.
So getting to impart these stories and share this history with people is probably the other thing that I love about doing conventions. I get to talk about the history and all the cool stuff that I learned, and hopefully get people excited about history or for reading in general. So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah,
Pretty impressive.
I think that for conventions is why it's the most interesting to me. Plus it's your writing family now, right? Like you go there, and we always say when we go to Dragon Con, yes, we are
Eh,
home.
yep. Yep. That's what Zapo says every time. It's like, oh, we're home now at Dragon Con. It
Yep.
is awesome. And it's funny if you go to like Peachtree Center when it's not Dragon Con. So you go there for something else, you're like, there's something not right here.
It's
Like it's
so
weird.
it's so weird. It's like
They have
every
furniture. Do you know
time.
they have furniture in the Marriott?
What?
I know. I blew my mind. I was like, this is not right. What is this? I don't understand.
They pull it all out because we
Because we'll
would
all sleep
destroy
on
it.
it.
Oh, people would sleep on it, destroy it, vomit on it. It would not be in Marriott's the party hotel. It would be utter
Yep.
shite when they were done with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame. I remember once we walked through Marriott because I like to get up. I'm actually not much of a partier. I get up. I do the like early writing sessions. I like to go to all those things, and then I'll stay up late, but not that late. And I don't like the big crowds, right? So I'll like walk around the perimeter just to see what's going on, and then just go back to like the Hilton, um, or hang out at the West End Bar. Of course, that is where I hang out the most. And
Right.
then, as all of us writers do, right? So the one time I walked through in the morning. It was Monday morning in the Marriott, and they were shampooing the carpet, and the one side of it that they had finished shampooing was like this bright color, like because you got the brown nasty stripe stuff, right? So yeah, I won't say what we call it. And then so you had the on, it was so bright and alive and clean, and the other side looked like it had been drug through the desert, and then dead animals had been applied to it, and
Oh
you would expect
no.
little flies. Like, it was such a huge difference between the two things. It was incredible. But when you have that many people
Oh,
walking on it, holding a drink that's going to spill, right? It's just grabbing a snack real quick. It's just cover. That's what 80,000 people do to a carpet, man.
and all of a sudden, all I can think of is I sit in my head. I'm seeing people who are sitting on the carpet, and I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
walk. When I go this year and I walk, I'm gonna be like, no, I don't know if we should sit on that.
No. Maybe Thursday night. After that, don't even think about it.
Nope. Safest spot
uh,
may might be the edges, but that's about it.
that's right. That's it. It's the only place safe.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So if you're coming to Dragon Con, we'll get to see you then too. That'll be awesome. We can't seem to stay away. Even though I keep saying I'm gonna go somewhere else. And Seifo's like, but Dragon Con.
Yeah. No. Yeah. If you get in as an attending pro in Dragon Con or a guest, like letting that go and not going for a year and putting that in jeopardy, that's a big no for me.
Oh
I'll
no, I
go
have a
every
bunch of
year.
people. Like, I didn't get it this year, and neither did a bunch of people I know who've had it every single year for over a
Really?
decade. Did not get it this year. Yeah, there's this huge shift thing. So I think it's hilarious. So it's not just having it every year doesn't. The reason we can't leave is because
It
we have a
used to be.
legacy room.
Oh, okay.
We have a legacy room in the Hilton. So if we lose that, that will never get again.
Makes
So
sense.
yeah, that's what Zafo says. He's like, legacy room. Yeah, that's why we can't. Um, oh, Spike gets on. She says, "Hey, I know Tamsin Silver. I bought her books because she was at Jordan Con, so she got your books there." Yay! Um, let's see. Where are we? We're having so much fun, Tams. I'm so glad you agreed to come on.
It's awesome.
Um, let's see. What did you read growing up?
So as a little kid, my dad started reading to me. He loves to do all the voices and everything. And at night before bed, he would read to me. And so one of the first things he read to me, of course, was like younger books like Madeline and stuff like that. But when we finally got into longer stuff, it was like E.B. White, Charlotte's Web.
Mm-hmm.
We transitioned into fantasy from there easily, and it was C.S. Lewis. So Narnia would probably be that series. I think I made that poor man read The Dawn Treader to me like 3 times because it was my favorite one.
That's awesome.
Um, and so Alpha Centauri was a book that he read that I loved. And then when I started reading on my own, believe it or
Mm-hmm.
not, and this shouldn't surprise anyone, we're talking he's reading all this fantasy to me, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I picked up reading Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys. Um, then I
Boxcar
and then
Children.
right and I went and I slid in from those, and then I ended up in L.J. Smith, R.L. Stein, all those guys. And but if you think about if you write urban fantasy is basically fantasy and mystery kind of into so the
Mm-hmm.
fact that my dad was reading all this fantasy to me and all of a sudden then I picked up mysteries and then I wrote urban fantasy. Not a shock.
Yeah,
um
totally worked. You were programmed for
I was
it.
totally programmed into it. And so, but yeah, I was a big Nancy Drew fan when I first started picking up books on my own, and then I just got wrapped up in all of the young adult stuff. Even though I still read about young adult stuff. It
Same.
depending on the series. Sometimes you get into them, and the main character is just a little too angsty for me to deal with.
Same.
And you know what? It used to be fine, except for, and I'd be like, it's annoying, but not too bad. Now I'm like, oh God. And I think that's because I'm over 50, and I'm like,
Yes. I'm like, that's what I say too. I'm like, I can't say there's anything wrong with this book. I'm just gonna say I'm too old for it. I don't
yeah, no,
care anymore.
I started a book that someone loved. They're like, oh, I love this. I love this. And I started reading. I was like, I am going to take the lead character and I'm going to string her up in a noose. I'm like, I can't deal with it anymore. They've already explained to her that this is all okay. And she just continued. I was like, oh, I can't. I said, let your character evolve. Quit holding them
Please
stagnant.
quit
Let them
repeating.
evolve. Yeah. So, but I still love a lot of YA.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways I write it, to be honest. I mean, like I don't write adult. Like there's no sex scenes in the books. They're theater sex. Lights go down, lights come up.
That's right.
Um and what's interesting now is that so when I wrote Windfire series, it originally was an adult series and when it was called something else. And we changed it, and I had a new editor who worked with Random House, and she was like, "Yeah, you can only say the F word like 2 or 3 times, and there can't be any sex in it." Yeah. Have you read any of the current day YA books?
Yeah. Yeah, they shouldn't be called YA anymore. I don't understand that.
No, like I literally Throne of Glass novels.
Yeah, no. Mm-mm.
I
No, I'm
literally
with
was
you.
like, "Holy cow!" Like you get into a couple books in, and you're like, we have full sex scenes happening here and I couldn't do that. So I think they've just changed a little bit. Great series, by the way. It is long though. It's very a long series. The books are
Well, it's
like
called
this.
successful author. They don't edit anymore. That's what that's called.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that happens. You
So
will see that a lot.
oh
They get more
really?
successful. Oh yeah, just now you work at Barnes and Noble, right? Go to Barnes and Noble and look. You'll see. So what you'll see is when the author you can see based on the book series because her first one is really edited. Her second series, the first two are like edited, and after that they just stopped editing it because they're like it's gonna. But think about it. So from a publisher's point of view, it's gonna sell
Right,
anyways.
right,
Why do I need to spend all of that money on an editor to go through it bit by bit? So what you get is you get somebody like me who is an editor who reads it and it's going, we could have
right.
cut 300 pages out of this thing easy. I do
Oh my
not.
god. Yes. And I was listening to those instead of reading. I had them audio,
Mm.
and I'd be like, all right, we got to be close to the end. And I'd pull it up, and like we were at midway. I'm like, oh my God. That said, though, I love that character very much, and it was a
Yeah.
wonderful series. And I wouldn't probably read it again because it's so long, but I enjoyed it tremendously. And so, but nowadays I have a tendency to a lot of the stuff I read now is I really love J.D. Robb.
Mm.
Um, the In Death series is one of my favorite things out there. The minute it hits, the minute it hits the shove, I have the audio in 2 seconds. Like they're like, and it's out, and I own it, or it's and it's up for pre-order, and I've pre-ordered. So like So, and I like a lot of Nora Roberts fantasy stuff that she writes as well.
I
So,
haven't read any
so
of her
yeah.
fantasy stuff.
Oh, one of my favorite series of all time is her Chronicles of the One.
Hmm.
Highly recommend.
I'll add it to my TBR, which is
Yeah.
getting almost longer than my actually read. Um, it's hard living in the book world, isn't it? Such a challenge. Oh no, my poor life. I have too many books to read. There are
Hey,
definitely worse
remember,
problems.
it's not just a to be read file. It is your plans for retirement. You have
Yes.
plans for whatever you haven't gotten to yet. When you retire, that is your retirement plan.
Wait, retirement. What is this fable thing you speak of? Is
I
this
like to
another magical thing that you've just
that
invented
I've
for your urban
that I've
fantasies?
that we dream of. Yeah, right.
I'm not sure I'm ever going to see such a thing. Um, let's see. All right. So we've gone through a bunch of questions. We're about done, so we need to do the lightning round. So our
Okay.
lightning round is first, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Ooh, praline. It's in cream, probably.
Nice, pralines and cream. What is your or sorry, what would you eat for your last meal?
Probably some grandma's amazing recipe of mac and cheese.
Yes. All the things we shouldn't eat. Let's put it all into noodles. I'm with you on that one. What
Yep.
was the last movie you saw in the theater?
Ooh. The most recent Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh my gosh, I love that movie. Okay, but we
It
can't. We're
was
on lightning round.
so good, so good.
Right, right. What TV show is your guilty pleasure?
Ooh. I'm like Masked Singer. The
That's a guilty
Masked
pleasure.
Singer is
Yeah. Uh-huh.
definitely The Voice. I love that.
Mhm.
Um, and if I'm really just binging because I just want something on and to watch it, even though I've seen it a million times, it'll either be Buffy
Mhm.
or it'll be Criminal Minds. It's gonna be one of those that I'm just gonna
Okay.
watch, and yeah, that I'll
I don't think
redo.
those are guilty pleasures. I think those are good.
Those are just quality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, those are quality. When
But yeah.
staying in a hotel, do you unpack?
Yes. If I'm there, if I'm gonna be there for two full days and 3 nights or 2 nights, I will
Uh-huh.
put stuff. I hate living out of a suitcase. I hate it because you're digging and digging and then it's everywhere and it drives me batshit. So I am the person that will be like, are you using this? And everybody's like, no. I'm like, awesome. And so I wipe it down and I throw my stuff in. And I'm like, top, shorts, underwear here, bottoms here. We're good. Shoes over there. Shove my suitcase in the corner so I can kind of forget I'm even. So yeah, it's for mindset more than anything else. I
I
feel
love it.
more, and I can find things faster.
I love it. I love
Yep.
it. I
They
love it.
make fun of me. That's why I'm like,
I'm surprised by how many people do unpack. That's why I added this question. I think you might be surprised too. So don't think you're alone. Uh, and finally, where can fans find you and your work?
they can find me at tamsinsilver.com. You can also look me up if you go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or any place where books are sold. You can usually find them in either e-copy or in print.
Perfect, perfect. Well, thank you so much. Now that Tamsin is your new favorite author, please make sure to review her work. You can also review us wherever it is you get your podcast, and you can subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitch. And we'll see you next week with James R. Tuck. We'll see you
Oh, talk. Yes.
then.
Awesome.